Mike needs a change of pants, and I need a change of friends on this week's episode of Backstage. Hey everybody, welcome to Backstage. This is the Advanced Podcast, and this week joining me is professional musician and unprofessional comedian Mike Atkins, my good friend.
Hey everybody.
And we're talking about friends. So I wanted to bring in one of my good friends to talk about friendship and all the, the fun stuff and the bad stuff of friends and the intricacies of like your inner circle specifically, like those your squad or whatever you want to call them. So to get us started, what's the dumbest thing you ever did because either people were like your friends were pressuring you into do it, or they were all doing it and you didn't want to be left out?
Yeah.
So what was the dumbest thing you ever did?
So it's important to know, as you do, that I suffer from severe FOMO, severe fear of missing out. Yeah. If I don't feel included, I feel worthless.
Sure.
So one of the things, because there's a bunch, one of the things was two friends of mine and I were in a parking garage.
Nothing good ever happens with a bunch of friends hanging out in a parking garage.
We had just watched a funny movie. I don't remember what it was, but then, we had parked in a parking garage. We went to the parking garage, and my wife was my girlfriend at that time. She was there, and my friends were like, hey, let's see who can high kick, like the highest, just one kick.
Great.
So we were like, yeah, that sounds great. So our friend Mike, the first kick, he kicks up and splits his pants right in half, right? I say in half as if
right, all the way down.
Right down the seam. And then we're like, oh, that's funny. So then my friend Jake, he's like, oh, I can kick way higher than that. So Jake succeeds kicking way higher. Left foot comes out from underneath him. He splits his pants and falls. And so we're just dying laughing, And then they were like, Mike, you have to do it too. And I'm like, obviously my pants are going to split.
Right.
And I shouldn't do this. High kick, pants split.
Split, rip.
All three of us.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Were you done?
Pretty great.
Were you done for the night, or were you guys going to like dinner after that?
Well, at that point we were done for the night. I don't remember what the plans were, but yeah, it was over. It was over.
I can remember being probably in like first grade, maybe second grade, back when like riding bikes when you're friends was still cool. And
it is still cool.
Right. Well, like cool for me. Yeah. And I showed up. I lived on a street that had like a very, very long sloping hill. And it wasn't steep, but it's long enough that you're flying.
Oh yeah.
By the time you get to the bottom of the hill.
You're going 2 miles an hour and you feel like
right. But by the time you've gone down this hill that's like a quarter mile long, you're legging it. So we had the thing that every kid growing up had, which was a ramp that was made out of a piece of plywood and a 2x4. It's just
or
like
a cinder block if you were lucky.
Or a cinder block, yeah. You just put it down and you slap the plywood on there. And they put it like near the bottom of the hill beside my neighbor's house. And they were like, you won't ride your bike down the hill and jump that jump. You'll go flying. I was like, bet I will. Watch. And I don't know what I'm trying to prove at this point. And I go up to the top of the hill. I'm like pedaling as fast as I can to get going. And then I'm at the point where pedaling, it's a fixed gear bike.
Right.
It's like that.
The pedals are pedaling you at that point. Yeah.
Right. And I'm just flying down this hill. Hit the ramp. Everybody imagines, by the way, you see like AFV and all these dumb videos of people getting hurt on bikes because everybody thinks they're going to jump and be like Dave Mirren, just like fly and you're going to continue to be up and then you're going to land back wheel first. That's not how physics work. Like as soon as your front tire leaves the ramp, it starts descending and then your back wheel is up. And that's exactly what happened. I came and then it like the bike landed. I got air, both tires were off the ground, but the bike landed at like a 45-degree angle. And then I'm just over the handlebars. And this is before like wearing helmets was like cool to do.
Sure.
So, of course, I'm not wearing a helmet. Just over the handlebars, head into the pavement, and just like sliding on my head, like on the forehead across.
I've been there,
so
brother.
I got some pretty. So I think I like scorpioned and then eventually like whipped over the other way so that I did a full flip, and then just like all this is just gone. All this skin is just not here anymore on my forehead.
Do we need to explain what scorpioning
So like where your back bends one way, scorpioning is where your back bends the other way, that it's not meant to bend. So like
and your feet come up above your head.
Right, my forehead is on the ground, and my feet are also trying to touch the ground.
In front of your forehead.
Right. And I remember like once I like landed and the dust settled and I realized I wasn't dead, I was looking up at the sky and I was like, I think I'm gonna cry now. Yeah, it's time to cry. And then just like started pouring. It hurt so bad. I shouldn't have done it. I knew I shouldn't have done it. I've never been athletic or good at sports or any of that. So like I should have known at that point.
I don't know that athleticism is going to help you in that scenario, though. I think you're doomed from the get-go.
Spatial awareness, maybe. I don't know.
That's what it is.
So on a similar note, how have you seen friends influence your choices? Like not just in the peer pressure sense, but you know, whether it's like good friends helping you to make good decisions or not so good friends helping you to make bad decisions.
Yeah. I remember like when we were younger, everybody was like, listen, when you go to middle school, people are going to offer you marijuana, you know, like the dare,
sure,
that you learned in 5th grade. And so like, for me, I always thought peer pressure was going to be like sex, drugs,
like
alcohol.
It's presented in an after-school special, like where they're all standing in a circle smoking a cigarette.
Exactly.
Do it, Timmy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to.
I don't know if my mom will think this is a good thing.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I thought peer pressure was. But then I realized, like, the older I've gotten, looking back, like peer pressure was really imposed by myself on myself, because I thought, like, I projected that this is what people are going to like me for.
Right.
And so, like, you know, you want to be the funny guy, or you want to be the cool guy, or you want to be the attractive guy or whatever. And so you'll do all these crazy things to try and get people to like you. And so I found myself in that a lot more. My friends weren't necessarily telling me to do those things, but like we're all super insecure and all trying to figure it out.
Right.
And so, you know, they would say, I think this is cool. And I'd be like, that's the only cool thing in the entire world. And that's what we have to do, you know? And for this person to be my friend for the rest of our lives, because every friendship has to last until we both die.
Right.
You know, you wind up making all these really crazy decisions about yourself and stuff. And so I've seen over the years, my friends have, my real friends, like my true friends, have influenced my decisions in a good way. But when I was younger, I could really tell that I wanted to please people. I wanted people to like me. I desperately need for people to like me.
Yep. I got to like everything you like.
Yeah. I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, which is the helper. And so I desperately need you to know that you need me.
Yeah.
So that I can help you. And so I've always been like that. Like, I need you to like me. I need everyone that I meet to like me for some reason. And so the influence that my friends had maybe wasn't as direct as I thought it was. It was more me projecting that onto them.
Right. It's almost, that was some of the best advice I'd ever got for relationships, was like the worst thing for any relationship is the expectations you assume the other person has.
Absolutely. No communication.
Right.
Just like,
they'll probably like it if I do this.
Yeah. They'll like it if I go down this hill.
Right.
At Mach 4 and then crash and burn my face off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of times, it's just either not true. Like you're imagining that they want you to do something and they just don't care.
Right.
Or like worst case, like you're imagining they want you to do something and they don't. They want you to do like the opposite.
Yeah.
And then you do it, and we all want to be liked by liking the same things. They assume you like it.
Yep.
And now you're both doing stuff you don't want to do because you're both trying to impress each other.
No one's talking to each other.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
Nobody's being honest.
Yeah.
Well, something that we are talking about at Advance right now is this idea of like the inner circle and like having the right people in your inner circle. So what does it look like for you, or what has it looked like for you for an inner circle that has your best interest at heart?
I think to have an inner circle that has your best interest, number one, you alluded to it a second ago when you said people just maybe didn't even care, and then you're both doing crazy stuff, you know? Like, I've had to learn that I'm not the center of everybody else's story. Like, I think of that as myself, you know? Like, in my life,
you're the hero in the
I'm
movie
the
about
hero,
your life.
You know, the camera's on me, or everything that everybody does, they know exactly what they're doing, and I don't. So when they do something, it directly affects me, and I don't understand why they did that, but they were thinking of me when they made those decisions.
Right.
That's not true.
Not reality.
None of us are like that. And so to have an inner circle with people that have your best interest is really first to understand that you're not the center of the story.
Yeah.
And then secondly, to have like-minded values and beliefs. I mean, I have friends that I disagree with on several things, even friends that I disagree with on faith. But ultimately, you know, we're for each other. We're there for each other. We will have the hard conversations. We will, you know, walk through terrible things together, and also the day-to-day mundane stuff you walk together through. So, and the good stuff, you know, I don't want to throw that out either, but ultimately I think they have an understanding of what it's like to seek the welfare of each other.
Yeah.
As well as understanding what true welfare is.
Right.
There has to be that foundation of like, what is good? What is good for you? You know, it's not my idea of what good is. Like, what is the actual definition of what good is, so that I can, you know, point you to that and live a life that edifies that.
It makes me think of there was a time in my life where I had been just like wrestling through some stuff with either anxiety or depression or like some self-worth issues. And when you're going through stuff like that, or when you're going through anything really, like you want to hide it.
Yeah.
Like everybody kind of becomes like, when you have a secret, everybody kind of becomes an enemy. Mm-hmm. And when I finally talk to somebody about it, like you have all this fear that like they're going to hate me for this. They're going to hate me whenever they find out that this is what I'm dealing with. And when I finally like talked to somebody, they were frustrated, but they weren't frustrated with what I did. They were frustrated. They were like, "Why haven't you told me?
Yeah.
Why are you sitting there struggling and like wrestling through this and not like, we want to help you. The people in your inner circle want to help you. We're frustrated that you didn't talk to us about it." And so I think when you have those people, that's when you know you've got the right people. When you start to realize that like they're going to be frustrated that I haven't told them that I'm dealing with this. Like that's the sign of like somebody that they want the best for you, and they're not just there to gossip about you. Like you don't need to worry about telling them stuff because they're a safe place. Although that does bring up another question, which is one that I think a lot of people wrestle with, is that sometimes you have somebody in your inner circle that you realize just shouldn't be there. And it's not about excluding people. It's not about pushing out people who are not like you.
Yeah.
But, you know, there have been times in my life I know that either somebody was a bad influence or they just kept making bad decisions and then were like trying to drag me into the muck with them. Yeah. So what does it look like? Everybody's like, I can't not be friends with them anymore.
Right.
Like that's the thing. You don't want to be the jerk. So how can you tactfully, if there is such a thing, how can you remove a person from your inner circle that once you've realized that maybe they should not be there anymore?
Yeah. Man, that's tough.
It is tough. Yeah.
Because I've been through that several times, and not a single time would I look back and say I did this right. I did this exactly right.
Yeah. I don't know if there is an exactly right way to do it.
I don't know that there is
You're
either.
like, I wish they would just move.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's how it's happened for me in one scenario, which was extremely helpful. But it wasn't because we wanted to run away from the confrontation. It was more like I think we're on such different planes here, like thinking that no matter what I say, it's not going to be understood.
Yeah.
But you still have to try. I mean, you still have to try. But one scenario that I had to remove myself from an inner circle, when I was in high school, I had just started my freshman year, I think. I had this group of friends that I loved, ride or die kind of group, and I realized that I was really wanting to be like Jesus, and I'm not casting stones at them, nothing like that. We were all in a youth group together, and they all, came to every gathering that we had and all
Sure.
kinds of stuff. So I'm not trying to cast stones in any way, but I know that I really wanted to pursue what it meant to be like in an intimate relationship with Jesus and not feel awful all the time and not feel like ashamed and not feel embarrassed. And like, we weren't doing crazy stuff, but it was just like, maybe this isn't the best, and I started questioning that. And so I remember having to go to them and being like, hey guys, like, I really want to be like this. I want to be like Jesus. And they were like, cool. But I just knew that we weren't jiving there. Like, we weren't heading the same direction.
Yep.
And so I actually wound up saying something to the effect, and I wish I had said it better, because now I understand. Then I was like, I want to be like Jesus, and they don't. So we can't hang out together, you know? And that's not great, because then they had a bad taste in their mouth of what it meant to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
You had to like not hang out with people, and like you couldn't be friends with people.
Yeah. Jesus to them becomes the person who takes their friends away.
Exactly. And that's my fault. Like I own that, and I wish I had known better, but I didn't at the time. So really like dealing with either any breakdown of an inner circle, any removal of yourself or someone else, I think it's important to remember why we have friendships in the first place, what they're based off of, because I don't have to make you out to be a villain or a monster to not have you in the inner circle. I don't have to say, this isn't working because you're a terrible person, get out. It's more, I really feel like we're not jiving, like what is it that we're not jiving over? What are the fundamentals of this relationship that we're not on the same page with? Because without those, it's all going to be up in the air.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be walking on eggshells, and then you're not going to share important things, and then it's not an inner circle anymore. It's an acquaintance that you feel close to.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, I can think of, for me, it has more so been like taking care of myself to have people out of my circle. I can think of a number of instances where they just weren't good friends. Yeah. And kind of like you, like, I'm not trying to throw stones or anything, but like, it was a very one-sided friendship. Mm-hmm. Like, it was the kind of where you open your messages and you scroll up. It's like, timestamps are all above my name because I'm always the one starting the conversation.
Yep.
And
it's awful when they have read receipts and they haven't
responded. It's not making it any better.
Yeah,
for sure.
Ouch.
And I can remember one specific time I was like, I'm going to not start a conversation with this person just to see how long they will go.
Yeah. And
it was about 4 months, I think, before they sent me a message. It was like, I see where we stand here. Message received. I'll get out of here.
Yeah.
So, and times like that, you certainly don't need to be mean, like you said, but that was for me. That was like torture for me, of like trying to keep being this person's friend, and they just were not reciprocating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can only get kicked in the teeth so many times before you just got to admit, like, it's not working out, and like, that's unfortunate that they just don't want to hang out with me, but all right, we'll figure something else out.
Yeah.
And there doesn't even need to be, I think most people imagine like, well, then there's going to be this great divide, and it's going to be like the season finale cliffhanger where we're not friends anymore because we just blew up at each other.
To be continued.
And that's not reality most of the time. Most of the time, reality is not that you're ghosting them either. Like you're not just disappearing and not answering their stuff anymore. But like the reality is, it just fades a lot of time. Like now you've gone 2 days without talking, and now you'll go like 5 days between messages. Then it'll be like a couple weeks between messages, and the reality is it just fades away, which I think is easier and harder. I mean, it's easier because there's not the big confrontation, but it's also like harder because it feels like you're like dragging out this thing. And so I guess the thought is just like, you don't need to have this big explosive end. You don't need to walk up to somebody and say, it's not a business, transaction. We are not friends anymore. I would like you to sign this document certifying
Thank
that
you for what you have contributed to this relationship, but we're going to move on.
Right. It's not like that in reality. It tends to be just the fade, and you can do that in a loving way. And you can still be respectful to the person. You can still want the best for them, but also acknowledge like they should just not be influencing your decisions, and that in some cases they're just not safe to share the stuff that you're dealing with. And the reality is it's just, it makes you make that face like you smelled something bad. Like it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. There is no great solution other than just like fingers crossed, like, oh, something happened and now they have to move all the way across the world and you can't talk to them again. You can follow them on Instagram and then that'll be the extent of your relationship. But, that's just like...
That's okay, though. I mean, if you look at Jesus, right, which is a good thing to do. When you look at Jesus, even in his like ministry and his friends, he picked 12 disciples, but he still had an inner circle of 3, Peter, James, and John. Yep. That were his inner circle. And so like even there, Jesus set, I think, a precedence for us to not have to, everybody doesn't have to be your best friend. Everybody's not going to understand your story. Everyone's not going to understand your thought process. I'm a verbal processor, and one of my best friends is, not. He is an internal processor, and so he can think about something, and then when he says something, he really means what he says. Right. Well, I struggle with that because I'm like, I don't know what I think about any given thing yet. And so I need to have a safe place to be able to, like a laboratory almost, to kind of say a bunch of stuff and be like, does that make sense? Do I agree with that? But you said something earlier about, just kind of knowing where you stand with stuff. And I think that's really important with an inner circle of friends, is knowing what I think. We said earlier, you all want to think the same thing. You all want to say the same thing. And, but ultimately I kind of want to know me. I need to know me. I need to know the way I think or how I'm wired, and that really comes from like introspective time and time with Jesus to, will you reveal to me what it is that you say about me, how I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And some of that is just trying to work out the kinks. I mean, sometimes you get into a relationship and you're like, I thought this was one thing, but it's not. And you learn something about yourself. So an inner circle of friends, I think, going back to that first question of how do you, how are you like looking out for the good of each other? You kind of have to know yourself a little bit to understand what that good is. And so when people come in and out of that inner circle, it's really a basis of, are we going to be able to, knowing me and knowing that person, are we going to be able to edify each other? Are we going to be able to look out for the good? Or is it always going to be kind of missing? Yeah. Is it always going to be kind of ships in the night that just real close to each other, but like just kind of pass by? I think that's important to just give yourself that grace of, this is kind of how I am. I don't want to be something else. And everybody in this group kind of wants to be this way. Yep.
That's probably the best thing you can do for your inner circle. And it which is to just, and it sounds like cheesy, like movie, but like be yourself and stop pretending to be who you think people want you to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes in the short term, that hurts.
Yeah.
Because you'll find out that people, they liked this thing you were pretending to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, if you're pretending to be something and you're never being real, then it's not really a real friendship. It's not a real inner circle.
Because you're not in it.
Right.
Like, you're not even in the friendship.
They're friends with this fake character that
Yep.
you've made.
Yep.
So I think that's a good place to stop. Thanks for sitting down at the table.
Of course, man.
You should come back sometime in the near future.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And for everybody watching, listening, like this podcast, share it with your friends, subscribe, and we'll see you next week backstage.